to the module Week 4, Internationalisation, Clip 4, Foreign Business Practice and Payment. Hi, I'm Robert Nissen, Research Fellow from Tasmanian Institute of Agriculture, University of Tasmania. In this lecture, we are looking at business practice, and the first element to address is how to finance your export and foreign business practice. Firstly, you need to minimise the risk of exporting your horticultural product or products overseas and the impact on your domestic operations. Risk management is where you identify, assess and prioritise the risks that coordinate an economical response by using your responses to minimise, monitor and control the impact of unfortunate events. In your export strategy, you should determine how you wish to finance, freight and logistics, get paid and legal issues. You should always use best practice principles when developing your export plans. On this slide is listed 12 practice principles you should consider. 1. Develop a risk management plan and matrix. 2. Set up your funding options. 3. Payments. 4. Letters of credit. 5. Credit insurance. 6. Know your customer credit history. 7. Invoke non-payment precautions. 8. Official representation. 9. Use a trusted intermediary, bank or agent. 10. Always seek advice. 11. It is best not to offer credit or credit items to customers. 12. Have a legal option. There are usually 5 steps in the export risk management process. Step 1 is what is the context of risk? 2. Identify the hazards. 3. Assess the possible risks. 4. Determine the control measures. 5. Review the controls. Risk analysis process involves a mapping of the value chain. This involves your product, information, data, monetary flows, and control and identifying business partners. Conducting a threat assessment focusing on agricultural and public safety threats, quality assurance, and food safety. External threats may be in the forms of terrorism, contraband, smuggling, or organised crime. Conduct a vulnerability assessment. A vulnerability assessment includes identifying what the partner has that is a threat to your company. Preparing a written action plan to address vulnerabilities. Develop a process and mechanisms to identify and record your weaknesses. Document the procedure for how risk assessments are conducted and include reviewing and revising the procedure periodically. You may wish to develop legal, political, market access, non-payment and exchange risk matrix and the impact on your company financial status. To finance your export of horticultural products, you may need to consider how to obtain your venture capital and the best finance system. There are many agencies ready to help. Australian government has a range of different schemes and some are listed on this slide. There are trade finance loans, Australian government schemes such as Small Business Export Loan, Export Contract Loan, bond facilities, export line of credit. Any Australian bank can help. In addition, you can use open account transaction. An open account method is used to settle import and export transactions between 2 international trading partners. Clearance of outstanding balances on the account is at the mutually agreed periods. This payment method requires absolute trustworthiness on behalf of both parties. The risk is, as an exporter, you are under this type of open account transactions and buyer non-payment. In addition to organising your venture capital, you would need to look at your company's exposure to currency risk transfer, control and risk reduction. There are various strategies you can put in place to mitigate against these risks. These are currency risk transfer. Risk transfer means causing another party to accept the risk, typically by contract. Forward contracts. The contract is based on future price that is agreed in advance. Currency futures essentially is a standardized forward contract that is traded and an organised exchange. Money market hedge. This is the simultaneous borrowing or lending of two different currencies to lock in the home currency value of future foreign currency cash flows. Swap contract. Agreed to exchange a stream of payments over an agreed period. Currency option. Here you sell a quantity of an item at fixed price on or before a specified date in the future. Diversification is the shifting of markets for output, shifting sources of supply, shifting product lines and production facilities as a defensive reaction to adverse exchange rates. Here we will briefly look at different buyer payment options you may choose for your company. Prepayment or upfront payment. What are the pros and cons of this method? Advantages are cash sale where the buyer pay in advance of the shipment. Limits your risk. It's a good option to use when selling to new customers. The disadvantages are opposite effect to the seller. The risk is on the buyer. The buyer has to trust you will deliver quantity and quality of products on time. Many buyers are not happy to use this payment method, particularly lack of trust with new buyers. Documentary collection. This is where your bank handles your trade, including your export documents. Once the buyer makes the payment, the bank releases the documents so the buyer can obtain his goods. There are two types: payment using site draft, acceptance using a term draft. At site or on demand is considered riskier than against payment of full goods. This is due to time frame involved to obtain your money. Credit terms or open account. The advantages are match your competitors, often requested by purchasers. This is the most inexpensive payment method. Disadvantages of this are extending credit items has a real impact on your business. Non-payment, obtaining buyers' credit risk, ranking information, in addition, the country currency risk. There's letters of credit. The advantage of these are secure and regulated by the International Chamber of Commerce. Disadvantages are you need to recover costs of credit insurance and administration costs for letters of credit on top of your sales price. In letters of credit, these are regulated by International Chamber of Commerce under the Uniform Customs and Practice for Documentary Credits, UCP 500. Letters of credits always draw the draft on the bank and not the buyer. Some letters of credit are revocable and irrevocable. A revocable letter of credit may be amended or cancelled by the issuing bank at any moment and without prior notice. The best advance, never accept this form of letter of credit in your export arrangement. Confirmed letter of credit. Use when exporting to a country with economic or political instability. However, the letter of credit will be confirmed by a first-class bank. Transferable letter of credit. It allows dealing with more than one beneficiary. Letter of credit payable at site. Payable at site means that you'll be paid immediately. In fact, it may take up to 7 days after presentation of the documents. Letter of credit payable on the maturity date. You may be paid on the maturity date indicated in the letter of credit after presentation of the documents. In this lecture on foreign business practices and payment, there are several key factors we have to look at. Risks associated with exporting and risk management model and the financing of our exports through the use of venture capital and the various Australian government and bank options. We then looked at business practices and best practice principles, elements to consider in the risk management process and the risk analysis process, and risk matrix. Finally, looking at various buyer-payer options and briefly at letters of credit. Thank you.